This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to our daily roundup. We are diving into the biggest headlines in law, technology, and finance to keep you informed on the developments shaping our world today. Let's get started.
The DOJ seeks to shield its lawyers from outside ethics probes.
OpenAI apologizes for not reporting a mass shooting suspect's account.
Federal prisons will now allow firing squads and gas executions.
The Justice Department drops its criminal probe into Jerome Powell.
Tucker Carlson expresses deep remorse for his previous Trump support.
Internal investigators will now review the Federal Reserve's building costs.
Dropping the Powell probe clears Kevin Warsh's path to confirmation.
Jared Kushner travels to Pakistan for high-stakes talks with Iran.
First, the Justice Department. The Justice Department is proposing a significant rule change that would allow the Attorney General to intervene in state bar investigations involving federal prosecutors. This move is designed to centralize disciplinary oversight within the DOJ itself, rather than leaving it to independent state licensing boards. Officials argue this is necessary because political activists have increasingly weaponized the bar complaint process to target government lawyers for their work. They cite recent complaints against figures like Pam Bondi and Ed Martin as evidence of this trend. By allowing the department to request a first review of complaints, the DOJ hopes to prevent what it calls the chilling of zealous advocacy by its attorneys who are simply performing their duties.
However, this proposal has sparked intense backlash from legal ethics experts, judges, and state attorneys general across the country. Critics argue that removing independent oversight weakens the rule of law and makes it harder to hold government lawyers ethically accountable for their actions. Michael Frisch from Georgetown University Law Center warns that this could delegitimize the traditional processes used to regulate the legal profession. There are also concerns that the rule violates the 1998 McDade-Murtha Amendment, which specifically subjects federal prosecutors to state ethics laws. If the rule is finalized, it is almost certain to face immediate legal challenges from those who believe federal lawyers should not be allowed to police themselves behind closed doors.
Now to OpenAI. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, has issued a formal apology to the community of Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, following a devastating mass shooting in January. The shooter, an 18-year-old who killed 8 people, had a ChatGPT account that OpenAI banned months before the attack due to problematic usage. Despite identifying the account as a risk, the company did not alert law enforcement at the time. Altman expressed deep regret, stating he was sorry the company failed to act. He explained that the account's activity didn't meet their internal threshold for a credible or imminent threat of physical harm. This admission has reignited the debate over the responsibility tech companies have to report potentially dangerous behavior to the authorities.
The fallout from this incident is growing, as the parents of a child injured in the shooting have filed a lawsuit against OpenAI. They allege the company had specific knowledge of the shooter's long-range planning for a mass casualty event, but chose not to intervene. This isn't the only legal trouble for the AI giant. They are also facing a criminal probe in Florida related to another shooting suspect's use of ChatGPT. In response, Altman has promised to strengthen safety measures and work more closely with government agencies to prevent future tragedies. The situation highlights the difficult balance between user privacy and public safety, especially as AI tools become more integrated into daily life and potentially used for harmful planning.
Next, federal execution methods. The Department of Justice has released a 48-page memo directing federal prisons to expand the methods used for executions. In addition to lethal injection, the department will now allow the use of firing squads, gas asphyxiation, and electrocution. This change is framed as a way to strengthen the death penalty and ensure that justice is delivered for victims of the most barbaric crimes. The memo also defends pentobarbital as the gold standard for lethal injections, but acknowledges that sourcing the drug has become increasingly difficult due to legal challenges and manufacturer refusals. By broadening the available methods, the DOJ ensures it can carry out lawful executions even if specific drugs are unavailable, marking a sharp departure from the previous administration's moratorium on the practice.
This policy shift follows President Trump's executive order to resume the death penalty for severe crimes, including cases where illegal immigrants kill law enforcement officers. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche argued that the prior administration failed its duty by refusing to carry out these punishments against dangerous criminals. However, the move has been met with fierce opposition from Democratic lawmakers like Senator Dick Durbin, who called the expansion of execution methods cruel and immoral. While some states, like Alabama, have already moved toward alternative methods like nitrogen gas, the federal adoption of these practices is seen by many as a significant and controversial escalation. It places the United States in a unique position among Western nations as it doubles down on capital punishment.
Moving to the Fed. In a major reversal, the Justice Department has announced it is dropping its criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. The probe, which was launched earlier this year, focused on alleged cost overruns during the renovation of the Fed's headquarters. However, many observers viewed the investigation as a political tool used by the Trump administration to pressure Powell into lowering interest rates. U.S. Attorney General Jeanine Pirro posted on social media that she has directed her office to close the case, effectively ending a period of intense friction between the White House and the central bank. This decision is seen as a backing down from a challenge to the Fed's traditional independence, which is crucial for maintaining economic stability and market confidence.
The timing of this announcement is particularly notable as it clears the path for the Senate to confirm Kevin Warsh as the next Fed chair. Warsh was nominated by President Trump to replace Powell, whose term is ending soon. Powell had previously taken the rare step of releasing a video statement to defend the Fed's autonomy, arguing that monetary policy should be based on economic evidence rather than political intimidation. By dropping the probe, the administration may be attempting to smooth over relations with the Senate, where some Republicans had expressed concern about the optics of investigating a sitting Fed chair. This move likely signals a shift in strategy as the administration prepares for a leadership transition at the nation's most powerful financial institution.
Next, Tucker Carlson's shift. Tucker Carlson is making headlines for expressing what he calls a sense of torment over his previous support for President Trump. On his podcast this week, the conservative commentator apologized for misleading his audience and suggested that he is wrestling with his conscience. The primary catalyst for this break appears to be the administration's military actions in Iran, which Carlson has long opposed both publicly and privately. He feels betrayed by the decision to go to war, an issue that has become a major point of contention within the conservative movement. This public display of remorse is a significant departure for Carlson, who has been one of the most influential voices in the pro-Trump media landscape over the last several years.
Journalist Jason Zengerle, who has written extensively about Carlson, suggests that this move might be more than just a change of heart. He believes Carlson is strategically positioning himself for a future political run, perhaps even for the presidency. By distancing himself from the war in Iran now, Carlson can claim he remained true to his anti-interventionist principles if the conflict becomes unpopular with voters. This allows him to present himself as a redeemer for disillusioned conservatives who feel the administration has strayed from its original promises. Whether this is a sincere moral awakening or a calculated political maneuver, it highlights a growing rift among the president's most prominent supporters and could have lasting implications for the future of the Republican Party's ideological direction.
Back to the Fed. While the criminal investigation into Jerome Powell has been dropped, the scrutiny over the Federal Reserve spending is not entirely over. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro announced that an internal investigation will now be led by the central bank's own inspector general. This shift comes after President Trump repeatedly criticized the ballooning costs of the Fed's building renovations, which have reportedly reached over $3 billion. The White House maintains that taxpayers deserve answers regarding what they call fiscal mismanagement. By moving the inquiry to the inspector general, the administration is keeping the pressure on the Fed's leadership while avoiding the legal and political complications of a direct criminal probe. This internal review will focus on why the renovation costs exceeded initial forecasts by such a wide margin.
The Fed has defended the costs, citing the need to remove hazardous materials like lead and asbestos, as well as the impact of nationwide inflation on construction projects. Despite these explanations, the feud between Trump and Powell has remained highly personal, with the president frequently calling Powell names and questioning his competence. The decision to drop the criminal aspect of the probe was also influenced by political reality in the Senate. Key Republicans had indicated they would not support the confirmation of Kevin Warsh unless the investigation into Powell was resolved. This compromise allows the administration to move forward with its preferred nominee while still demanding accountability for the Fed's budget. The Inspector General's findings will likely be made public once the review is complete, providing a final word on the matter.
More on Powell. The Justice Department's decision to drop the Powell probe marks a significant reversal for Jeanine Pirro, who had previously vowed to continue the investigation even after a federal judge blocked it. The judge had criticized the probe as an improper campaign to pressure the Fed into cutting interest rates, calling it an unjustified act of intimidation. By pivoting to an Inspector General review, Pirro is following a path that has already been trodden. The Fed's Inspector General has actually reviewed the construction project twice before and found no evidence of wrongdoing. This history suggests that the new inquiry may struggle to find the fiscal mismanagement the White House is alleging, but it serves as a necessary step to satisfy political demands in Washington.
Senator Tom Tillis was a vocal critic of the investigation, famously remarking that if every government official with a budget overrun went to prison, the country would need a penal colony the size of Texas. His refusal to back Kevin Warsh's nomination without the DOJ dropping the case was a major hurdle for the administration. Now that the path is clear, the Senate Banking Committee is expected to move forward with Warsh's confirmation hearings. This transition is critical for the administration's economic agenda, as they seek a Fed chair who might be more aligned with their views on interest rates. The end of the criminal probe effectively closes a contentious chapter in the relationship between the executive branch and the nation's central bank, at least for the time being.
Finally, Pakistan talks. The White House has confirmed that Jared Kushner and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff are traveling to Pakistan for a new round of talks with Iranian officials. This mission is part of a broader effort to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East and potentially reach a new deal with Tehran. While Iran's foreign minister is also in Islamabad, his office has denied that a direct meeting with the U.S. delegation is planned, suggesting that Pakistan will act as a mediator for the exchange of messages. This diplomatic push comes at a critical time, as the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon remains incredibly fragile. The U.S. is hopeful that these conversations will move the ball forward, especially since the Iranians reportedly requested the meeting themselves.
The situation is complicated by the ongoing U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports, which Tehran has cited as a reason for their reluctance to return to the negotiating table. They have dismissed recent ceasefire extensions as meaningless as long as the blockade remains in place. Meanwhile, violence continues on the ground, with Israel targeting Hezbollah sites in southern Lebanon despite the announced ceasefire. President Trump has been deeply involved in these negotiations, unilaterally extending the ceasefire with Iran earlier this week. The inclusion of Kushner in this delegation signals the high priority the administration is placing on these talks. As the conflict enters its 56th day, the international community is watching closely to see if this high-level diplomacy in Pakistan can finally lead to a sustainable peace agreement.
That wraps up our briefing for today. Thank you for joining us for this overview of the latest developments in law, tech, and global diplomacy. We will see you back here tomorrow.